312, shots fired. Suspect down. Do not move!
I don't know why people keep saying justice. It's no justice for my baby. I want accountability. I want accountability because he was 23. I want accountability because he had life ahead of him. I want accountability because he was in his own home. I want accountability because Florida gave him a permit to carry the gun that he had pointed down. I want accountability because he opened the door with his left hand thinking that he was safe because it was the police he was opening the door for. Roger's not right-handed, Roger is left-handed. I can't express that enough.
He opened the door to his own home. Seconds later, he was dead. The pursuit of justice for Senior Airman Roger Fortson. Truth Gang, this is the story of Senior Airman Roger Fortson, a 23-year-old United States Air Force serviceman, a son, a brother, a friend, an air commando, a young black man serving his country with honor, professionalism, and purpose. Roger was assigned to the 4th Special Operations Squadron at Hurlburt Field near Fort Walton Beach, Florida. He had a stellar reputation. He was disciplined, he was respectful, he was hardworking, he was calm, he was focused. He was deeply dedicated to his military career. His family said Roger loved his country, valued his family, and stayed focused on his future. His fellow airmen remembered him as professional, dependable, and someone who carried himself with honor. Roger had dreamed of becoming a pilot since he was young. He joined the United States Air Force after graduating high school in Georgia. During his time in the military, he traveled the world, earned respect from his peers, and built relationships with people who later described themselves as his military family. But Roger was not just a uniform. He was a real person. His mother, Shantameki Fortson, also known as Mika, remembered him as an old soul who loved to dance and loved Motown music, including the Temptations. She remembered him helping her deliver newspapers for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution when he was only 11 years old. They would leave around 1:30 in the morning, finish around 4 a.m., and Roger would sleep briefly before getting up and going to school. She said he was smart enough to do his homework at school.
Those are the memories of a mother, not just how her son died, but how he lived.
On May 3rd, 2024, Roger Fortson was inside his apartment in Fort Walton Beach. He was home alone. He lived alone. He was talking to his girlfriend on FaceTime. Then came the knock at the door. Former Okaloosa County Sheriff's Deputy Eddie Duran had been sent to Roger's apartment complex after a report of a possible domestic disturbance. But there was a serious problem. Investigators later determined the disturbance report connected to Roger's apartment was unfounded. There was no domestic fight inside Roger's apartment. There was no victim inside Roger's apartment. There was no emergency involving Roger Fortson. Records showed deputies had never previously been called to Roger's apartment. However, deputies had reportedly been called to a nearby unit multiple times in the months before Roger was killed, including at least one call involving a domestic disturbance. According to reports and the lawsuit, an apartment complex worker directed Deputy Duran to Roger's apartment. The worker reportedly told Duran that a disturbance was happening in apartment 1401 where Roger lived. She also reportedly said that 2 weeks earlier she heard arguing and what sounded like someone being slapped, but she did not call 911 at that time because she was not sure which apartment it was coming from. On the day Roger was killed, she said she believed the disturbance was coming from Roger's apartment based on what another resident told her. But when Duran approached Roger's door, there was silence. No yelling, no screaming, No fight, no disturbance. Still, Duran went to Roger's door. Body camera footage showed him knocking and announcing, "Sheriff's office, open the door." But according to the lawsuit, Duran did not initially announce himself before knocking. The lawsuit also alleges that Duran positioned himself out of view of the peephole, making it difficult for Roger to see who was outside. Inside the apartment, Roger was still on FaceTime. He could not clearly see who was at the door. He heard aggressive knocking. Concerned for his safety, Roger retrieved his legally owned firearm. He was a lawful gun owner. He was inside his own home. He had not committed a crime. He had not threatened anyone. He had not attacked anyone. He opened the door with the firearm in his right hand. But the gun was pointed downward. It was not raised. It was not aimed at Deputy Duran. Roger's left hand was reportedly raised in a non-threatening posture. According to the lawsuit and body camera footage, Roger never pointed the firearm at Duran. But within less than 2 seconds of the door opening, Duran fired. Multiple shots struck Roger. Roger fell backward into his apartment. Only after Roger had already been shot did Duran yell, "Drop the gun!" That detail matters. The command came after the bullets. The command came after Roger was already falling. The command came after deadly force had already been used. As Roger lay on the floor, wounded and dying, he reportedly said, "It's over there. I don't have it," referring to the firearm that had fallen. He could also be heard saying, "I can't breathe." Roger Fortson, a 23-year-old senior airman, was dying on the floor of his own apartment. His mother later said she watched the full FaceTime video. She said Roger was coughing. She said he was begging for help. She said he suffered for several minutes while the deputy moved through the apartment. According to Mika, another officer eventually came in and said, "He's military." She said Duran then reacted saying, "Oh, F-U-C-K." For Mika, that moment was unforgettable, because by then, her son was already dying. The Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office initially defended the shooting, stating that the deputy responded to a disturbance in progress and acted in self-defense after encountering a man armed with a gun. But the body camera footage raised serious questions about that version of events. The footage did not show sounds of a disturbance coming from Roger's apartment. The footage showed Roger opening the door with the firearm pointed down. The footage showed Roger did not point the weapon at the deputy. And the footage showed Duran fired almost immediately. Duran later claimed he feared for his life. He reportedly said he saw aggression in Roger's eyes. He described Roger's stare as aggressive. An aggressive stare. That explanation sparked outrage because the question became clear. Can an alleged stare justify deadly force when the person is standing inside his own apartment, legally holding a firearm pointed toward the ground? Roger's family says no. Many across the country say no. The Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office later completed an internal affairs investigation. That investigation determined Duran's use of deadly force was not objectively reasonable and violated agency policy. Duran was fired in late May 2024. Then prosecutors charged him with manslaughter with a firearm. Duran turned himself in at the Okaloosa County Jail. At his first appearance, his attorney argued that he should be released because he was not a flight risk. His lawyer said Duran had been living with the case hanging over him since May and would show up for court. But the judge denied bond at that initial appearance. Authorities said Duran was housed alone for his safety. Prosecutors explained that manslaughter with a firearm required a mandatory pretrial detention hearing. If convicted, Duran faces up to 30 years in state prison. Duran has pleaded not guilty His attorneys are expected to argue self-defense. His trial is scheduled for September 28, 2026. During a short hearing, defense attorney Michael Flowers, prosecutor Mark Alderman, and Judge William Stone scheduled 3 days for the trial. They also set aside 3 days for a hearing on the admission of expert witnesses. Attorneys said they may need a pool of around 200 potential jurors. Judge Stone also scheduled a pretrial conference and said he expected to see more progress in the case. The judge had previously denied a motion for continuance from Duran. Roger's family has continued showing up. His mother has traveled from Atlanta to Florida for court hearings. More than a dozen family members have traveled to Fort Walton Beach, some from as far away as California. They wore blue shirts with Roger's photo and camouflage pants. They showed up because Roger cannot. Outside the courtroom, Mika urged prosecutor Mark Alderman to get her son accountability. Not revenge, accountability. Roger's family has also filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed in federal court in Pensacola. The complaint alleges that Eddie Duran used excessive and unconstitutional deadly force when he shot Roger inside his own apartment. The lawsuit also alleges failures by the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office in training and supervision. It also claims staff at the apartment complex provided misleading information that helped lead to the fatal law enforcement response. The lawsuit names Duran, Okaloosa County Sheriff Eric Aiden, apartment ownership interests, and others connected to the events that sent Duran to Roger's door. Roger's family is represented by civil rights attorney Ben Crump. Ben Crump has represented families in several major police killing cases, including George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tyree Nichols, and Michael Brown. At the news conference, Crump said Mika wanted to speak because she was deeply hurt and concerned that time had allowed Roger's name and life to fade from public consciousness. He said the family was not there to litigate every fact or comment on ongoing proceedings. They were there because silence, delay, and distance have a human cost for families left grieving while waiting for answers. Mika said, "I need to know what happened to my baby." She also said, "I have to try to learn how to live life without Roger. I don't think I'm going to ever learn that." That is the pain of a mother. And Roger's death was not the only tragedy this family endured. Less than 3 months after Roger was killed, his 16-year-old brother, Andre Fortson, was shot and killed in Atlanta. Andre was an innocent bystander. He was killed in a breezeway at the apartment building where he lived with his mother and sister. The shooting involved a dispute that had nothing to do with Andre. Mika has said Roger's killing created a domino effect in her life. She believes that if Roger had not been killed, Andre would have been in Fort Walton Beach spending the summer with his big brother. Instead, she buried another son. 2 sons gone. 2 devastating losses. 2 pieces of a mother's heart taken. She said, "Everything Eddie Duran did started a domino effect in my life." She also said Duran will always be the person who took 2 of her children, because even though he did not pull the trigger in Andre's death, she believes Roger's death placed Andre in a different situation. Mika has said Fort Walton used to be her happy place. Now it is her nightmare. And still, she keeps going back to court, back to hearings, back to the place connected to the worst loss of her life. At one hearing, she said, "My heart is broke." She also said, "I have other kids that need their mama, but I can't be there because I have to be here." That is the cost of seeking justice. It is not just grief. It is travel. It is court dates. It is reliving the trauma. It is fighting to make sure the world does not move on before accountability comes. Roger's funeral showed exactly who he was. Hundreds of air commandos traveled to Atlanta, Georgia to celebrate the life of their teammate, friend, and fellow air commando. Hundreds of Air Force members attended in dress blues. That kind of turnout does not happen by accident. It happens when someone leaves a real impact. Colonel Patrick Deerig, commander of the 1st Special Operations Wing, spoke about Roger's character and service. He said, "We only accept high standards, determination to execute our mission, anytime, any place." Then he said, "Senior Airman Fortson answered the call of duty. He excelled with honor, professionalism, and confidence." And then came the words that told the world who Roger really was. Beyond his flying and combat accolades, he was a great person. And if you want to be a great airman, be a great person. A great person. That is how Roger's commander described him. Not just a great airman, a great person. That matters because Roger Fortson was not just a headline. He was not just body camera footage. He was not just a court case. He was not just a hashtag. He was a son, a brother, a teammate, a serviceman, an air commando, a young man with dreams, a young man with discipline, a young man with a future, a young man who served his country and was killed inside his own home. Truth Gang, this case raises questions that cannot be ignored. Why was Roger's apartment identified when deputies had never been called there before? Why was the apartment employee so certain the disturbance was coming from Roger's unit? Was the nearby apartment with multiple prior calls properly considered? Why did Duran position himself where Roger allegedly could not clearly see him? Why was Roger not given time to comply? Why did the command to drop the gun come after the shots were fired? Why was deadly force used when the firearm was pointed down? Why did the sheriff's office initially defend the shooting before later determining the force was not objectively reasonable? And how can an alleged aggressive stare justify killing a man standing inside his own home? These are the questions that remain. These are the questions Roger's family carries. These are the questions a jury may soon have to consider. Duran's trial is scheduled for September 28, 2026. The civil lawsuit continues. The family continues to fight. And Mika continues to speak her son's name so the world does not forget him. Because this is about more than one case. It is about the right to be safe in your own home. It is about the right to lawfully protect yourself. It is about the responsibility of law enforcement to verify information before deadly force is used. It is about accountability when a life is taken. It is about a mother who lost 2 sons and still finds the strength to fight. It is about the pursuit of justice. Say his name, Roger Fortson. Remember his name, Roger Fortson. Honor his life, Roger Fortson. And stand with his family as they continue their pursuit of justice. # Roger Fortson, # Justice for Roger Fortson, # Say his name, # Remember Roger Fortson, # Truth Gang Active.